everybody, Chris here, and in this video we're going to be making a big and easy cinematic title in DaVinci Resolve using the Fusion page editor. So for this tutorial we'll be using this video clip, which you can find the link to in the description of this video. So the first thing we're going to need to do to create a title for this clip is to go into the effects library on the edit page. And then we will go to Effects, and we'll find Fusion Composition, which allows us to create a node setup completely from scratch, which is what we're going to want here since we're going to be making everything from scratch. So for this title, we're going to want the Fusion Composition title to match the duration of our clip. So I'm going to just stretch this out to the end here so that when we're working on the edit page, we have access to all of these frames in order to make and edit our title. So now we can take this Fusion Composition clip and go over to the Fusion page with the left click. I'm going to go ahead and clean up the screen. So in the top right, I'm getting rid of the keyframes editor and the spline editor for now. We may come back to those later. So since we're going to be building out a title sequence, the first node we're going to need here is going to be a text 3D node, which is conveniently located on the hotbar right above the node graph. So if you click on this T for text 3D, we can create that node here. If you hover over a node, you'll see at the bottom left-hand corner, there's going to be two circles. Those refer to the preview windows up here on the left and the right. So I'm going to preview this text 3D on the left side for right now. So you'll see that this text 3D exists in a 3D space. If you hold Alt and middle mouse wheel, you can drag it around and look at it from all angles. So right now we don't have any text added to the styled text box, so nothing is going to appear. So let's go ahead and add some text. It can basically be whatever you want the title to say. So I'm going to just put cinematic here since we're building a cinematic title. I don't quite like the default Open Sans font when we're working with big titles that are supposed to have an impact. So you can select any font you have installed on your computer. But there's a couple I really like off of dafont.com, Babus Noy and Big Noodle Titling. I'm using them all the time in my videos. So let's see, maybe we can go with Babus Noy for this one. You can see how it's very blocky, it's big, it's stand out, so it will do nicely for a title sequence. Next, let's go ahead and render this text out so that we can feed it to media out and see how it looks in the final video as it stands right now. So for the future, I'll use a merge 3D node, and make sure you have text 3D selected when you add it here. So just with the left click, you add merge 3D. This allows you to combine other 3D nodes, and we're going to need things like lights in the future. And then finally, renderer 3D allows you to output everything in 3D space to a 2D image, which can be used by media out. So when you connect all of those nodes together, you'll get the final image that will show through on your main video. So we can see the text now being rendered here in 2D. So we can easily see by default that the text sits a little bit above the middle of the screen. The anchor point should, I believe, be at the bottom middle of this M here. And what we're actually going to want to have happen is the middle point for the text being in the center of the text character. So we can do that by changing the vertical anchor. So by default, it's set to bottom, where the text sits on top of the anchor point. Basically this blue box you see here in the left preview window. But if we change that to center, then the text is now going to center around that anchor point, which in this case, since the anchor point is in the middle of the screen, the text will now be perfectly centered as well. So next, one of the easiest way to add some movement to our text is going to be to have its size grow during the duration of our clip. So what I'll do here is go to the last frame for the text 3D node, and we will just keyframe the size here. So I'm going to take the size and increase that to basically the max size I want it to be on the screen. So we can make it something like 1.2. And then we'll come back here to the first frame using this cursor and put it at 0. And then we will change the size to a different value. Make sure that you're getting red keyframes set for each frame. And those keyframes will be indicated up here as well with little white notches. So if I put 1 here for the size, it's going to create a keyframe there because there's already one at the end. So now I can hit the left and right arrows to go back and forth between these two keyframes. If I go to the first frame and I hit play, then you'll see how the text slowly grows in size over time. But that is really, really slow. So what I might want to do here is decrease the size further at the first frame. So let's do something like 0.6, making it quite small initially. Then we can hit play and see how it grows over time. So right now it has a linear speed, basically growing at exactly the same rate. I think I might want to change that and add in an ease curve. So how we can do that quite easily is to open up the spline editor in the top right and click on the property that we want to adjust with an ease curve, so size here. And I'm going to hold Control and zoom out a bit so that we can see these two keyframe points. So we just need to left click, drag a box around them, and then we can click on this little smooth key here. And when we do that, it's going to put an ease curve, basically. Slow at the start, slow at the end, and then fast towards the middle. And that's going to change the flow of the speed as it goes between those two values. So you can see here, slow at the start, it gets a little faster. In the middle, it's at its fastest. And then it will slow down again when we get towards the end. So you can create all kinds of variations of that if you want it to be slow at the start or fast at the start, slow at the end. But we'll go with that for right now. So I'm going to close the spline editor. Okay, and so now we have a basic zoom effect. But even though it's a 3D text, right now the text has no depth. So if we use Alt and middle mouse wheel to go around our preview for the text 3D, we can see that it is very flat. So how we can give it some dimension is to use extrusion. So in the inspector, if you scroll down to extrusion, we can open this up and we can add some extrusion depth. So just take this value and put it out to be basically as much as you want. So in order to look at our text better, I'm going to use Control and middle mouse wheel in to zoom in, Alt and middle mouse wheel to rotate it around, and we can see now that the text characters are a little bit blocky, actually appearing as 3D objects here. So that's going to be important when we add a texture to the front face, but we'll actually leave the side as white by default. So we can actually go ahead and take care of that now. So to make the text a lot more interesting, rather than just having a solid white color, let's add a texture to it. So if we click on our 3D text now, and we go up to the top in the inspector, the fourth tab is shading. If you click on that, there's an area here called material where you can change the type of the front-facing material from solid to an image. So when we do that, it exposes a little white notch here called color image 1. So now we just need to feed a texture image into that node to render that as the front of our text. So on our node graph, to add that in, we right click, go to Add Tool and Out Loader, and find a texture you like on your computer. You can find them all over the internet, so I'm going to use this gray illustration for now. We'll try that out, and I will connect that in to color image 1. So you can see that right now the texture is applying to everything on the text, including the sides. We don't want that, so if you left click on text 3D, under shading, you'll see this use one material checkbox. If you uncheck that, then the sides, the bevel, is going to be white again, which I think is going to look better for this case. Having a little bit of variation and being able to easily see that the text is in fact 3D. So if you scroll down, you'll see that now there's this bevel material exposed, which you can actually add your own extra texture into if you wanted to, but right now it's just a solid white. We'll leave it as that for now. So if we go back over to the edit page now, we can kind of see how the title looks so far. So I'm just going to kind of scrub through here so we don't have to wait for everything to pre-render, but you can get the idea. It just kind of zooms in, has a texture on the front face. So what would make this look a lot more interesting and realistic now is if we actually had the 3D scene receive some lighting, especially because we have this nice spotlight in the background for our base clip. It would be nice if we integrated that and had a little spotlight in the 3D scene to kind of give that lighting on the text as well. So if we go back over to Fusion, we can add lighting to this scene by clicking on Render 3D and then checking the checkbox for lighting. And you may also want one for shadows. Might as well throw that in. Well, actually, maybe we don't need shadows. Only if you mean to cast a shadow on like a 3D plane or something underneath it. But I guess that would just be pointless extra processing right now. So we'll leave just lighting checked. So now you can see that with lighting enabled, the text appears black because there is no lighting in the scene. So we're going to need to add in some 3D light nodes. So I'll right click, go to Add Tool, 3D Light, And let's start with an ambient light to give it a little bit of base lighting. And then with this ambient light, I'll add in a merge 3D. Not 100% necessary because you could just connect this to the merge 3D below, but I'm going to make these lights their own separate group. So I'm connecting the merge 3D2 to the merge 3D1. Then I'm going to take this new merge 3D and I'm going to call it merge lights, just to kind of separate our different areas of node graph. So now you can see that even though we added in an ambient light, it's still black. So what we have to do is click on the merge lights node and check pass through lights. So this will allow the lights to go through this merge to this merge and actually impact the stuff that's coming from over here. We probably are going to leave the intensity pretty low for that. I think something like 0.2 actually looks pretty fine here as the base underlying light. And then we'll just have spotlights illuminate the rest of it. So let's add in a back spotlight. By right-clicking, go to Add Tool, 3D, Light, and Spotlight. And I'll hit F2 to rename this Back Spotlight. And I will connect this to Merge Lights. So the next thing I want to do is take the Merge 3D, the final Merge 3D that's right before the render, and I'm going to make that the preview for the left node over here, just because I want to see everything at once before it gets rendered out. So we can see in this 3D merge node, we have the spotlight, and right now it's sitting basically on top of our text at the origin point 000, I assume. And we actually are going to want to move that and then point it towards the back of our text. So if we click on back spotlight, we can use the gizmos inside of this preview window to move its position. So I'm just going to move the Z position back here, and then I'll click on this rotate tool in order to rotate this to actually point towards the back of our text. So I'll get it somewhere like that, and I'll use Alt and middle mouse wheel to rotate around the scene to get a better angle at exactly what we're looking at here. Probably want to reposition that over to the left a little bit more. So that looks decent. We can always go back to the Edit tab and see if that kind of matches up with the spotlight that's in the shot. So let's put that about there. And we can also click on the back spotlight now, and we can change some of the settings here. So we may want a bigger cone angle if you want it to hit more of the text. Could just go for everything right here if we want with a really large cone angle. So since in the underlying shot, it's a kind of yellow-orange light there, we might want to tinge the color on this light a little bit. So I'll shift it towards orange just a little bit. Okay, and now we have our back spotlight. All right, so now we might want to add in some lights to the front of our title. So I'm going to right click, go to Add Tool, 3D Light and Spotlight. So we'll add a left spotlight, and then I'll copy and paste this, and then I'm going to make this the right spotlight. And I'll just connect both of these to merge lights. So we have a total of 4 lights going in our scene now. And what I'll do with these lights is kind of make them like a search spotlight, illuminating the front of the text as the light pans from left to right, and the right spotlight will pan from right to left. And I think that'll make it a little bit more visually interesting. So first got to rotate the scene, Alt middle mouse wheel, and we can see these 2 new spotlights are in the same position, the 000 pointing towards the back like the first spotlight was. So I'm going to start by adjusting the position of the left spotlight and move it out somewhere like here. And I'll do the same with the right spotlight. So make them the same distance from the center, roughly speaking anyway. And then we'll just need to animate them. So to test real quick, I'm going to move the spotlight in front of the text, and we can kind of get an idea of what that might look like as things are right now. So with this texture, it actually looks really cool with this white light. We can test and play around with it a little bit. Maybe you want to try something else, like a little bit red. And then with this other spotlight, we can come bring that in here. Oh, it doesn't seem to be pointing. Oh, I'm actually not sure what this is. I've been moving around, to be honest. Okay, so anyway, we want this right spotlight to come over here. I'll just move this over here for right now. I don't know if that's going to impact anything. Okay, but anyway, we have this right spotlight. You can left click on it, and then the left spotlight over here, which we've currently made red. So we can see how this might look with dual colors. So I might go down here and make this blue. No, actually this right here is the ambient light. So as long as it's on the scene, it doesn't actually matter where it is. If you don't already know, an ambient light applies the same amount of light to everything in the scene regardless of what angle it's at. So having it out there is perfectly fine. Okay, so what's going on right here with our two lights is that the blue light's crossing over with the red light, and then in the center it's creating basically a white light by combining the colors, which is pretty cool in a lot of ways. The only thing is, I don't know if it really matches this scene. So if we go back to the edit page, we can see how it looks with the background footage. We could animate that, and in a way it looks cool, but it just doesn't really match the scene. So maybe we're actually going to want these lights to also be something of a normal colored light, more along the lines of a white or a golden color. So let's go ahead and return it to that. So I think this just really looks good with the white lights. So I guess we'll go with that. So let's just position the lights where they're supposed to be. So this will start on the left side. This will start on the right side. And I'll go to the transform tab for each of the lights and make sure that they're roughly offset by the same amount from the center. So this will be x of 1, or let's make it negative 1.1. And then the right spotlight, go to the transform, will be positive 1.1. Okay, so now they're offset from the center by the same amount. Let's do the same for the Z. So we can make the Z of 1 for both of them. Left spotlight, Z1. Okay, and that'll be our starting position for the spotlights. Since we want to animate them, we're going to want to add keyframes for the X, Y, and Z on the translation. So select this spotlight and then keyframe all of those, and then do the same for the right spotlight. Okay, so what we should do is go to frame 0 and then select the left spotlight and keyframe X, Y, and Z by clicking on the gray diamonds. Go to the right spotlight, do the same thing there. And now we can find a point in time at which we'd want to animate them. So we could have them be at different elevations, or we could just have them crisscross in the middle. I think we'll just do that. I will go about 2 seconds in, and I think that'll be the duration we want it to get to the other side. So with the left spotlight, we're going to want to change the value to be plus 1.1 now. And then with the right spotlight, we take the X and make it negative 1.1. So now if we play this back, they're going to crisscross in the middle and get to the position, the starting position of the other one's original starting place. So it can look something like that. Okay, and I think that looks pretty good. One thing I'm going to change though is I'm going to lower the cone angle for both of them and make the radius smaller basically. So cone angle of 30, and then the other one, go to the first tab, cone angle of 30, and perhaps we want to lower the intensity as well. So I'll take this and make it 0.75, and then the other one 0.75, and let's go ahead and play it back. Okay, so now let's have them meet back in the middle at frame 150. So I'm going to take the translation for both of them and make it X of 0, and then right spotlight X of 0. And when they're both at that point, we're going to want the spotlights to expand in their size, basically covering all of the text. So let's go to frame 120. And when we're there, we can keyframe the cone angle, I think. And left spotlight, let's also keyframe the cone angle. Go to frame 150, and we'll just increase this to something very large. Let's just make it 90 degrees, why not? And then 90 degrees there as well. So if we play this back, they're going to meet roughly in the middle, and the size is going to grow since the cone angle is growing. And then the text just kind of continues to grow and grow and grow. Okay, so there's a couple problems here. One, the text eventually outgrows even the cone angle of 90. And secondly, because both of the lights are centered, the center area gets more light than the sides, which we might want, but we might also not. I'm going to say that we don't. So instead of actually ending at the center position, I'm going to have the right spotlight end at 0.5, and then the left spotlight will end at negative 0.5. So make sure you're on keyframe 150 when you set that. Let's go and hit play now. Oh, whoops. It got set to negative 0.05, not the same. So make sure your number's right. Okay, and we'll hit play one more time. Okay, looks lit pretty well. So if we go back to the edit tab and play it back, we can kind of get an idea of how it's looking here. The main problem is that maybe the clip is a little too long and the title is a little too slow. We're going to add music on later, so that should help. And obviously the playback and the timeline is slower because everything isn't pre-rendered. But yeah, I think we're going to want to lower the duration of this title clip to more like 9 seconds than 12. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So taking the cursor, putting it to 9. And actually, I really like this bit where the guy kind of walks off the camera. So I'm going to shave the 3 seconds from the start, not the end. So let's go here. I'm going to use B for the blade tool, cut that part, select it and hit Control X to cut it away. And I'm going to slide all of this over. Then we'll go to this moment in the Fusion composition. I'm not going to trim the Fusion composition clip yet since we still have some keyframes we need to move, but I'll go over to the Fusion page. And I think the only keyframe we had after this point, 260 frames, was in Text 3D, the position or the size rather. So we can just adjust that. So if we click on Text 3D and we go to keyframes, we'll be able to find the keyframe position for the size property. So we just need to move it over here from the end to where we have our cursor set, and it should snap in there. So at frame 260. By doing that now, basically the size increase is going to occur over 260 frames rather than 349 frames. So it should be much faster. So let's go ahead and hit play and see how that looks. Okay, and the lights are going back towards the center. And then when they get there at about frame 120, they are going to start growing. Right, yep. Okay, and the title keeps continuing to grow. We're going to have some music in the background. And at about frame 260, we're going to cut it off. But what we'll do is we will have it start to fade out about here so that we can transition away from the title screen. So next, let's go to the edit page and let's add in the music. So if you're looking for some cinematic music, a really great source for that is going to be Kevin MacLeod. You can find his stuff on incompetech.com. Of course, I'm going to credit that in the description as well. So the one I want to use here, I believe, is Fearless First. So I'm going to drop this into the project, and then we're going to put that onto the audio track 2. So let's just add this down here and see how it sounds as is. Okay, so that is pretty good so far. I think I do want to keep the footsteps from the stock clip there. So I'm going to lower the volume of the music a little bit so that they match up a little better. So let's take the volume here on the soundtrack clip to about -5 decibels, and let's hit play. So now we just need to adjust the length of this Fusion composition clip. Since there's no keyframes after this point, we can actually just take this and trim it down to this point. And then we're going to have to fade it out. So we can just do it really quickly here on the edit page. We don't even need to worry about doing it on the Fusion page. So let's take the tab in the top right hand and pull this in as far as we want it to be for this title to start fading out. Okay, and we'll also have the base clip fade to black as well here. So let's see, we probably want the clip to fade before the title actually. I'm gonna trim it a little bit on the left side. So I'm hitting A to go into selection mode, and then I will just pull in here a little bit to adjust the starting point. I'll slide this clip over. So we'll have this fade out first, and then I will take this top notch and make its fade start after the underlying clip fades. So the clip will fade out, and then the title will fade out, and then we can switch into whatever else we wanted to for the start of our actual video project. So let's go ahead and hit play here. So the fade's going there. It might be a little bit quick, so I'm going to make it go over a longer duration. Okay, yeah. That's a lot better there. And then at some point, we can fade out the audio as well. So I'll just cut this bit away, fade out the audio. Same thing using the white notch trick. So now we can go over here and play everything back one more time for the ending. And yeah, not bad. So with a little more cleanup, this is basically the result you're gonna get. So that is how you can create a big cinematic title inside of DaVinci Resolve 16. I've been Chris. I hope you guys learned something from this tutorial. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in my future video content.